Hello and welcome to the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. I am so excited. It is week one of the season. Games are starting tonight, and I'm joined by Nate Marcum. Nate, thanks so much for coming on and breaking down week one with me today. I really appreciate it.
No, the pleasure's all mine, Jeff. I love talking football with you anytime we get a chance.
And Nate, you can find his stuff on Fantasy in Frames. It's fantasyinframes.com. He is great with IDP stuff. So if you're an IDP player, I highly suggest you checking Nate's stuff out on there. He also writes for Fantasy Pros as well. You can follow him on Twitter at Nate Marcum. You can see it right there on the screen. Nate, again, you love the IDP stuff though, right? That's kind of your thing.
You know
Talk
what's
about that a little
crazy
bit.
is like 3 years ago when I joined up with the guys at Fantasy and Frames, and they really love IDP, and he said, "Hey, we could use someone that could help. Would you help us out?" He said, "You understand the game of football and the process, and I think that you would make a good acclamation." So this is like I'm an infant. This is my third year doing IDP, and I've just been lucky that maybe I understand it. Maybe it's just pure luck or whatever. But to be the top 5, top 6 ranking competition overall for each one of those years, that's kind of spurred my interest a little bit too. When you have success at something, you want to continue to do it more, and it's helped both sides of the ball.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely becoming more popular as well. I think more people like to do different type games, and IDP's kind of moving its way up the board a little bit. So here's what we're going to talk about today on the show. For week one, we're going to do under the radar plays. We're going to look at every game, and Nate and I are going to give you one player that we think is kind of under the radar. We don't want to talk about the chalk guys. We know you're going to start Patrick Mahomes. We know you're going to start Tyreek Hill, but we're going to give you some guys that maybe you're on the fence about starting for week one. I know it's week one as well, and hopefully you have your lineup in good shape, but still, there could be some questions for you on there. And if you have questions about anything, don't hesitate to put them in the chat at all. And Nate and I will get to them and talk it through, give you a good answer, hopefully. And also, a big giveaway today. We're giving away another free entry to the Fantasy Championship here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. This is to compete for a grand prize of $500,000. Leagues are drafting live until the contest sells out, which it could. But also, it drafts up until Sunday morning. So you can watch these games Thursday night, if you're watching this taped. And you can still draft players that played in the games Thursday night. So could be a little bit of an advantage there if somebody has a huge night. Also, there's league prizes in addition to this big grand prize of $500,000. This is valued at $300. You must be a legal U.S. resident, at least 18 years of age to win. Also, you can get a great deal right now, 100% deposit match up to $200 here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. Go to rtsports.com/alarm. Use the promo code ALARM23. We will do a 100% deposit match up to $200 for first-time customers. And please play responsibly. Call 1-800-GAMBLER for help. And as always, you are not eligible to win if you have won in the last 60 days. I'm not going to give you the trivia question just yet. I'm going to tease it. We'll do it in a few minutes here. It might be a little tough. Hopefully it's not too tough. People can figure it out. I kind of stumped Nate a little bit. And as you can see, he's a big Chiefs fan. So it was a Chiefs-related question kind of tied into the game tonight. So I kind of stumped Nate a little bit here. Though Nate, big Chiefs fan, though. Both of us, we will say we're from St. Louis. We know each other through some leagues here. We kind of connected through some fantasy channels here in the St. Louis area. There's a lot of St. Louis area fantasy guys, but Nate's a big Chiefs fan as well. You're looking forward to that game tonight?
I am. Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracked. Obviously, bone bruise is the two words that I never want to hear, especially 36 hours before game time. But everybody's collectively holding their breaths on what's going to happen with Kelsey, of course. But yeah, it's always it's opening day, man.
I agree. That's the big question, what's going to happen with Kelsey. And we're going to jump into that game right now. So Lions at Chiefs, the line is 54 for the over-under, -7 to the Chiefs as well. So Nate, give us your under-the-radar player and your thoughts on the over-under and that line. Well, what are you picking?
Yeah, so, I mean, at that spread, I don't want any Chiefs fans listening. I'm tempted to lean Detroit way, but I think I'll still stick with the Chiefs. It's hard to not go against Mahomes in week one, like we were talking about earlier. His week one statistics are mind-blowing. And as far as like under the radar, I think we kind of mentioned this name is, I think, Jerick McKinnon, especially without Travis Kelce. If you look last year, who was the number 2 running back in the NFL in red zone targets? Jerick McKinnon. And when it's not Travis Kelce, it had been Jerick McKinnon. A lot of that was without Pacheco and without, CEH. But I think there's a good chance that we could see him finish way above his ADP and finish inside that RB2 conversation.
I like that call, McKinnon. I think that's a really good one. I'm going a little deeper. So if you want to take a chance in DFS, I'm thinking Richie James. I thought he took advantage of playing time in the preseason. He got a lot of chances with Mahomes, especially in the red zone. Kadarius Toney's probably going to play, but he's banged up. Travis Kelce's up in the air. I think James is going to get playing time. He has the most career receptions out of all those guys in that receiver room as well. So I'm kind of intrigued by him this week. He's really cheap on DFS too. Lions allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to receivers last season as well, so they're susceptible to that. Could struggle against stopping these Chiefs receivers. It's always tough to guess which one's going to go off in that room, but I'm thinking maybe Richie James finds the end zone this week, so that's my call there. All right, let's move on to the next game, Nate. Panthers at Falcons. So that line is 43 for the over-under, so low-scoring game. Falcons -3 right now. What do you got there?
Yeah, I think this will be the game that we really want to see, obviously, just how Arthur Smith's going to utilize Bijan versus Tyler Algier. I think it's going to be heavy Bijan, and I think Atlanta will control the game on the ground, but the Carolina defense isn't a joke. They're actually new defensive coordinator, much improved. I'm still leaning Atlanta in that game. And if I have to go under the radar, if I think Atlanta leads, that probably means Carolina passes. And don't know how far under the radar it is, but where he's been drafted, Adam Thielen seems like a safety blanket for Bryce Young completely. DJ Chark was suffering a hamstring injury. Jonathan Mingo still a work in progress, had some drops. But Adam Thielen, especially for a DFS play, cheap, secure. If there's a chance to get in the end zone, we know that's where Thielen has strived. Obviously, last year was a little concerning how bad he looked, but, different situations.
So I agree with that call on Thielen. He was actually my pick as well because I think he's healthy right now. I don't know how long that's going to last just because of his track record recently, but I think he's the number 1 receiver. He's healthy right now, so I think use him early in the season when you can. Falcons also allowed the 9th most fantasy points to receivers last year. Like you said, I think he could be the safety net for Bryce Young at least early in the season while those two have a rapport. So I like Thielen this week as well. And I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. So I'm going to go the under on 43. I'm going to go with that under. And I like the Falcons, too, at home. I do think it'll be a close game, though. And I say the Falcons squeak it out just like that team, just a little more than the Panthers right now. Like you said, though, Panthers made some good upgrades this offseason. All right, move on to the next game. Texans at Ravens. That not the most exciting game on the slate here. A big spread. I believe it's the highest one. Yeah, 9.5. -9.5. Ravens over-unders 44.5 as well. Give me your thoughts on this one.
I mean, this is what we've been waiting for Lamar, right? An offensive situation where he has the best pieces around him. He's healthy. The opportunities are endless. Obviously, Mark Andrews being a little banged up is a little worrisome, but not so much. I'm more excited about Houston than I guess the Vegas is, because I think 9.5 is a ton. And I think that they can cover that personally. I know that's a ballsy move for a rookie quarterback and a team that as much, but I think they lean heavily on Dameon Pierce. But as far as under the radar, I've been a Nico Collins fan for the entire offseason. I don't know how under the radar it is because at some point there's only so many weapons on both of these teams, and Ravens hardly have anybody under the radar. Everybody's been hyping up Zay Jones, Rashad Bateman, et cetera, moving them up. But Nico really, his yards per route run when he played last year nearly doubled from the year before. He was heavily targeted, good contested catch rate. And I think that they're going to lean, especially with Tank Dell will come in on third, 3 wide receiver set. So I don't think we'll see a ton of them yet. So I think this week we will see more Nico, and it wouldn't shock me if he, catches a touchdown and has 5 catches.
I like that. I like that call, especially if they're playing from behind. They could have to throw the ball more, like you said. I think the Texans cover as well. That's a big spread, 9.5. I think it was 10 earlier in the week, so it moved a little bit. So that means probably people were on the Texans there. And I'll say the under as well. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I'm not buying the hype with the Ravens offense, and being more air attack. I still think they're going to lean heavy on the run. I think that's just Harbaugh's way. I don't totally trust it. I'm out on all those receivers too. I just I don't know who's going to have the best game from week to week. And as you mentioned, I don't know if he's an under the radar player, but I like Dameon Pierce a lot just because, like you said, I think they're going to lean on him heavily, especially with a rookie quarterback on the road against a good defense. I think he's going to get a huge workload. He had double-digit fantasy points all but 4 games last year as well. So I think personally Pierce has been undervalued this offseason a little bit. I don't know why. I guess people are scared of Devin Singletary maybe, but I love Pierce, and I'm all in on him, and I think he's going to have a huge week 1. All right, I'm going to do the question now. We're 10 minutes into the show. So again, giving away an entry in the Real-Time Fantasy Sports Championship, $500,000. If you have won in the last 60 days, you cannot win though. Here's the question. So the last time the Chiefs and Lions played was September 29th, 2019. Chiefs won the game 34-30. They came from behind in the fourth quarter, scored 14 points, and a running back scored 2 touchdowns in that fourth quarter. Who was the running back for the Chiefs that scored 2 fourth quarter touchdowns in the last Chiefs-Lions game that was September 29th, 2019? First person to put that in the chat wins an entry into the Real-Time Fantasy Sports Championship. Excited to see if anybody can get this. Maybe we'll have to give some hints later, Nate. But we do have a question in the chat too. Falcons defensive upgrades good enough to warrant a fantasy start as a defense? What do you think?
So, yeah, I mean, the hard thing with that is at this point, if you're starting Atlanta, you're probably streaming and you probably end up spending a quote unquote valuable spot on defensive player. But the Falcons have, I would say the significant moves, a lot of the pass rush upgrades, but I don't know if I think the Carolina offensive line is too good to be warranting a pass rush that's going to be significant. So I'm going to say no. I'm out on Detroit. I've drafted the Commanders in every league going up for this week 1. And it was easy. It was cheap. It was almost like cheating. And so I'll wait till week 2 to stream a defense.
I saw that a lot as well. A lot of Commanders, people taking the Commanders for that reason that week 1. I love it though. That's a great savvy move. And someone guessed Darrell Williams for the answer. I will say, you are correct. Sorry, I thought
he said Damian. Wait,
he did say Damian. Oh, he said Damian and then changed it to Darrell. So Darrell Williams, he is right. Yep, and he said Damian Williams was injured. So wow, he's on top of things. Yep, you guessed both Williams. So good job to you. I guess is it pronounced. I don't want to butcher. Probably Jorge Edwards.
He would have done better if in Vegas than I did. Like I was telling you when I bet on the wrong person. And end up not winning the money. So, Matt, hopefully this Damian Williams or Darrell Williams pick will turn into half man. I love the fantasy championship drafts. I was fortunate to be in it last year, and I did not win, clearly.
It is an awesome contest, but good job to Jorge Edwards, and he guessed right. Darrell Williams. So in that game, 8 carries, 13 yards, 2 touchdowns. So you had to be loving that if you were a Darrell Williams owner. Okay, let's move on. We got to start moving on these games a little bit now. So Bengals at the Browns. That's our next game. 47 for the over-under. Browns plus 2.5 at home. All right, give me your thoughts here, Nate.
I can't get behind the plus 2.5. Maybe I'm on an island by myself, but I still don't trust Deshaun Watson. I know he's top 12 in draft rankings and all, and I haven't seen anything this offseason to warrant him moving up that high. In my opinion, it seems like the game's a little too fast. I would take the Bengals with the points. That also would say that I think the Bengals are going to get ahead, which leads me to my under the radar, and that's going to go back to Cleveland because I think Donovan Peoples-Jones has a chance to be that number 2, and if they're running 2 wide receiver sets, especially with the heavy personnel with Chubb, he has a great matchup against Chidobe Awuzie. I think that the secondary for Cincinnati is young, and I think they can exploit that just a little bit this week.
Cincinnati's got some injuries too in the deep secondary with their safeties as well, which is a little bit concerned there for this week. I like that calling Donovan Peoples-Jones too, Nate. I I kind of feel like he didn't get hardly any love this offseason for some reason. I think he'll be the number two, like you said. I think Elijah Moore is more going to be used as a kind of gadget player, that number 3 slot guy as well.
That's
So
what I think.
I agree with everything you said too. I like the Bengals to win on the road. I think I'm going to go with the over here as well. They'll cover that 2.5. And I just mentioned him, Elijah Morris too, kind of the guy I'm kind of intrigued by this week because you're going to be playing from behind. I think he could break a big player too as well. So that's my guy for my under the radar play in this matchup. Okay, Jaguars at Colts. This one I think could be a blowout in my opinion, but maybe you'll differ from me. So it's 43.5 to the over under, Colts +4.
No, I'm right there with you. Unless you think the Colts are going to blow them out, and if that's the case, then we greatly differ. But no, Jacksonville. If I'm Jacksonville's defensive coordinator, I'm playing nothing but man. I'm keeping my eyes on Anthony Richardson the whole time. I'm stacking the box. I'm not even worried at all about any RPO or play action. But if they're going to, which I know Shane Steichen will, Indianapolis will run enough play action that I think Alec Pierce could be a sneaky value in, maybe he might have 3 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown because Richardson, we know, is not the best passer, but he does have an arm. And if they go deep on those play action, that's set up for Alec Pierce, who is extremely well at that. And I think that could be a sneaky low ownership, dynamite play for the touchdown, especially a long touchdown.
I agree with you as well with the Jags. I think they win, they cover, and I'm going to go with the over too because I think the Colts will be able to put up some points, maybe late. So I think over 43.5. And I don't think it's quite of a sneaky play anymore because he shot up draft boards so much as the season, offseason progressed. But I kind of like Anthony Richardson this week at home, playing from behind. I think he's going to get some rushing yards. Jaguars allowed the 8th most fantasy points to quarterbacks last season as well. That pass rush is good, but I think Richardson might be able to escape some there. So I think it might be a decent streaming play this week if you're looking for a QB in week 1 already. Okay, Bucks at Vikings is another game. Personally, I think could be a blowout. Big line, Vikings -7. The over-under is 45.5. Thoughts on this one, Nate?
Same thing. Minnesota. Tampa Bay's just, I know that Baker Mayfield's preseason, everybody was hyping up and really just getting behind the idea that maybe we were wrong and this could be Geno Smith 2.0 from last year. I don't buy into it. I think the offensive line has issues. Tristan Wirfs is moving from the right to the left side. They've got rookies across that line. The defense is okay, but I think between Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and my under the radar play of KJ Osborne, I think could reap some rewards and pay dividends because KJ Osborne, I didn't like as much. I love Jordan Addison. I really do. I would think long-term, he's my guy. But early on, I think they're going to run 2 receiver sets. They'll probably get ahead, run the ball. And I think just by being on the field, Osborne has a chance to see it, a decent workload. I hate that under the radar play because I don't want it to happen. But I think realistically, I have to assume week 1's not the time for Jordan Addison to have his, welcome to the NFL game quite yet.
Yeah, Osborne's listed as a starter right now. And like you said, they run a lot of 2 receiver sets. They don't run three receiver sets a ton. So I think that's a good call too, especially in this matchup against the Bucks, who aren't always the best against the pass. I think the Vikings are going to cover, even though it's a big number, -7. I'll say the over as well. And I like Rachaad White a lot in this matchup. Just think he's going to get a lot of work just to try to keep the high-powered Vikings offense off the field. No, there's a lot of hype surrounding oh man, I can't think of his name now. Who's the
Sean Tucker?
That's it, Sean Tucker. Yeah. A lot of hype surrounding him, but it's White's job for now. I don't think Tucker's going to cut into it just yet. And I think they're going to give White a big workload in week 1 and try to take some pressure off that defense. So I'm looking for him to have a big game. Okay, Titans at Saints. That game is 42 for the over-under and -3.5 for the Saints. They're at home here. You think the Titans can keep this one close?
I mean, I want to say yes. Just because I trust in Derrick Henry to, carry teams on his back. And I think that's what he would have to do because that offensive line in Tennessee is garbage, as they say in France. It is not good. And I worry that they're just going to see a ton of pressure and Tannehill's going to have to just heavily load up with Henry. And I'm not saying that I think New Orleans can jump ahead offensively. I have my reservations about the Tennessee defense not, bending and not breaking type scenario. But I think that New Orleans covers. I think that I would probably take the under in that game, which is crazy because that's pretty low. But I think that this is a gradual situation. As far as under the radar, man, that this might be one of the more difficult ones because it's I have to assume it's going to be DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry. I think Treylon Burks might be under the radar in the fact that I saw him drop so far in drafts as a result of DeAndre Hopkins that he's a sneaky cheat, probably like, wide receiver 4 on a lot of teams. And I think he could find his way into that, especially if they lean heavy on trying to stop Derrick Henry. Should leave for some one-on-one matchups that Treylon Burks can exploit, especially running slants, which is one thing that, that coverage of the field he can do really well.
Yeah, I agree with the under as well. I think it'll be a really low scoring game. I think the Saints cover, though. I just don't know if the Titans have enough offense. Saints have a pretty good defense. I think it's kind of an underrated fantasy one for this season as well. I really like Juwan Johnson. He's been moving up my draft boards. I think he's going to have a good rapport with Derek Carr. Carr has a history of using the tight end as well. I don't trust Michael Thomas this year. So I think Juwan Johnson has a big week 1. Titans also allowed the 3rd most fantasy points of tight ends last season, so I think that bodes well for him. There's a couple questions in the chat. I want to get to those also. Someone asked, is Tank Bigsby a good play this week? What do you think?
I've been out on Tank Bigsby. I think that the Travis Etienne slander has been a little too high, and maybe that's just personal bias, but I still, everything leads me back to last year, the biggest game of the season, the most important play of the season, and they put the ball into Travis Etienne's hands. And that builds trust for me. I don't think they're going to trust in him or not trusting him enough that they're going to lean on Tank Bigsby. So I say no to a good play. I think he's a worthwhile maybe investment in case something happens to Travis Etienne, but I'm out. I don't know what your opinion on Tank Bigsby is.
I can't play him yet. I just want to see how they use him personally. I'm not playing him week 1. I think he's a fringe play to begin with. I just want to see their usage of him before I can stick him in my lineup. We have another good question too. Start 2 half PPR, Osborne, Juju, Warren, MVS, a chain. You already talked about Osborne a little bit. So who's your 2 out of these options?
Man, one, I think it would probably be, and this is not fun options. This is fantasy football. These are the type of questions I hate to say I love.
That's not good for this owner.
Oh man, that's a rough one. But maybe it's a super deep league. It could be I love the questions like this much more than I have Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Nick Chubb. I have to start 2.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
So I am in on KJ Osborne. Juju worries me because that whole knee thing that conversation's been coming up really has me concerned. Maybe that's not a week 1 thing. I love Jaylen Warren long term because I think I'm not the biggest Najee Harris fan, but I don't think week 1's the time to do that. I'm going to say it's going to be MVS. I'd do MVS and Osborne. That would be my 2. You?
Yeah, I would say Osborne, or I may do Juju just for early in the season just to see what he's like. And I think the targets will be there, but it's either Juju or MVS, but I might lean Juju. I think you can go either way there. Coin flip. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next game. Good questions too, everybody. I always enjoy getting those. We may have to hop around here. We don't have a ton of time left, so I'm going to look at some of the better matchups. I like this next one, 49ers at Steelers. That should be a really good game in my opinion. 49ers are favored -3, and it's 41 for the over-under. Who do you like in this one at Pittsburgh?
I like the 49ers. I still want to see Kenny Pickett take that next step before I trust in that offense completely. I think I would take the under in this matchup, which again is a really low under, but they're talking about light rain. It's 2 teams with Nick Bosa now. I'm going to lean that under. And I think if I'm going to take a under the radar, this is going to be gross, and I'm going to stand by it. I don't care. It's Allen Robinson. I'm going to lean on this cliff until I get pushed over. Him moving to the slot, I think, is just one of those aging veteran savvy moves that teams can do where he just finds a way to exploit the defense. It's gross. I don't care. I'm going to live and die by it, and we will see.
I'm going the over. I think that's really low. It's close, though. And I say the 49ers win too. I just don't know about the Steelers just yet. This 49ers team's really talented. And Brock Purdy, I think he's doesn't get enough love. Personally, another player that I think could be super consistent this year. Just look what he did last year. Multiple touchdowns, 6 straight games. I know the yardage wasn't great, but he just found the end zone. That team is so talented. So I think Purdy, again, if you're looking for a streaming play this week or a DFS option, could post some decent numbers in this matchup, despite it being tough on the road. All right, let's move on to, let's try to find another good game. How about Dolphins Chargers? That's a really good matchup.
Really good.
I think one of the best games of the weekend. Personally, the line on that is 50, so it's a really high one, 50 to the over-under. Chargers minus 2.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean on the Chargers just because they're at home. I think that's pretty much, it's a pick 'em game. Take the home field advantage. I think this is by far the most anticipated game for me on the Sunday slate because, of course, the Chiefs playing. But great matchup. I mean, we have I think I'll take the over in this. I think Kellen Moore is gonna add to this offense. As far as just looking deep down the field. I'm a big, you know what? I'm a big Gerald Everett fan this week. I think that the exploitable linebackers, as far as in coverage for Miami, leaves Gerald Everett in a good spot. So that's my under the radar tight end, especially if you lost Travis Kelce.
I like that. I think Gerald Everett, another guy that could be a sneaky good play most of the season in that offense. I like the Chargers too at home. I think it'll be super high scoring. Should be a great game. I think they squeak it out and they cover that 2.5 as well. And my play is Raheem Mostert. So a chain is healthy and he's going to play, but I don't know how much they use him just yet. And Mostert's the guy right now, in my opinion. And I'm going to take advantage of that early in the season when I have him. Chargers also, they were kind of bad against the run last year, 7th most fantasy points of running backs. So I think Mostert could be a good play. Again, kind of like Adam Thielen, in my opinion. Use them while you can, because I don't know if they're going to last all year. So that's who I like in that matchup. Let's hit one more game here. How about the Sunday night game, Cowboys Giants? That should be a good one as well. The line on that is 47 for the over-under and +3 to the Giants.
Yeah, I'm leaning on Dallas here on the road. I know the Giants, a lot of excitement surrounding the team as far as this next step for Daniel Jones and company. But I'm going to take the over too. As much as I love Dallas's defense, I still think that both teams are as healthy as they're probably going to be all year. And I know that's crazy to say, but I think the under the radar play, I'm only going to call him an under the radar because I don't think he's getting enough love, and that's Brandon Cooks. I think you could call him chalk, but I don't think he is. He's consistently my wide receiver 4 in a lot of leagues, and I'm extremely happy to start him this week. I think that him and Dak will build a rapport that we'll see continue on through the year, especially against some of those the secondary in New York, kind of underrated.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. I have the Cowboys winning too, and I'm going to go over as well, although the Cowboys defense is really good. We're up against a clock here. I like Jake Ferguson to kind of a sneaky play for this week, just because I think you did say that you thought that the Giants cornerbacks were a little overrated, but still they were decent last year, so maybe Ferguson gets more looks in the middle. All right, Nate, I appreciate you joining me. It was a lot of fun. We didn't get through all the games, unfortunately, but I'm super excited about tonight. Again, if you want to see Nate's stuff, you can follow him on Twitter at Nate Marcum. Also, he is on fantasyandframes.com. Great IDP information on fantasy pros as well. Nate, thanks so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it.
Pleasure's all mine, man. Hope to be able to do it again sometime.
And good luck to all of you in week 1 fantasy games. Getting Buzzed with Howard Bender is coming up at 1 o'clock. You want to tune into that. Should be a lot of fun with him as well as he gets you ready for all these games. This has been Jeff Power with Real Time Fantasy Sports. Good luck in week 1, everyone.